Imagine a morning centuries ago, where the world wakes not to the hum of machines, but to the crow of a rooster and the faint toll of a church bell. The air is cool, touched with wood smoke from cottage hearths. The Tudor village, with its thatched roofs and narrow lanes, stirs gently into life. Tonight, let us step into that world together, moving slowly and peacefully, as though time itself has slowed to a quiet walk. The first light of dawn slips across the English countryside, spreading its soft glow over fields divided by hedgerows. Mist curls along the meadows, and the dew settles like tiny pearls on the grass. The village is small, perhaps no more than a few dozen timber-framed houses, each with whitewashed walls and beams darkened by years of weather. Smoke rises lazily from stone chimneys, signaling the first fires of the day. The soundscape is gentle. A rooster calls from a nearby yard. A dog stirs beside the doorway of a cottage. The village church, standing on its small hill, rings a slow bell to mark the hour of prime, reminding all who hear it that morning prayers are due. Inside the cottages, life stirs quietly. A woman bends over her hearth, coaxing embers into flame to heat the morning's pottage. A child rubs sleep from his eyes and listens to the sound of cartwheels creaking on the lane as a farmer drives his oxen toward the fields. This is not a hurried world. The pace is measured, steady, rooted in the cycles of nature and the rhythm of the church. The Tudors lived not by clocks, but by sunlight and bell towers, each moment flowing into the next with patient regularity. The village feels timeless in this hour. The houses huddle together for warmth and safety, their doors opening to the dirt lanes where chickens scratch and geese wander freely. Beyond the cottages, the lawns stretch outward, already dotted with workers carrying tools over their shoulders. The day ahead will be filled with labor, but for now, there is stillness. The Tudor morning is quiet but alive. Life unfolds in small, careful motions. Bread kneaded on wooden boards, water drawn from the well, children sent to gather kindling. These are simple acts, repeated every day, yet they anchor the community in a steady rhythm of survival and belonging. And as the sun lifts higher, the Tudor village slowly comes into its own, a world of work, faith, and kinship beginning once again. The morning sun lingers softly over the village, brushing the thatched rooftops with golden warmth. Birds flit between the hedgerows, their chirping rising and falling like gentle waves. As the day unfolds, the village green becomes the heartbeat of Tudor life. This is the place where neighbors gather, where the rhythm of the seasons is felt, and where simple joys quietly take root. Imagine stepping barefoot on the dew-kissed grass. The ground is cool, with the faint smell of earth still holding the memory of the night. Around the edges of the green, timber-framed cottages lean slightly toward one another, as if sharing whispered secrets of generations past. Smoke curls from chimneys, carrying with it the comforting aroma of bread, baking and hearth fires smouldering. The villagers arrive gradually. Children chase one another in playful bursts, their laughter echoing beneath the open sky. A farmer pauses to rest his oxen at the edge of the green, wiping sweat from his brow as he exchanges greetings with a passing neighbor. Women carry baskets woven from willow, filled with herbs or linens, ready for barter or gifting. Each step and sound becomes part of a larger, harmonious hum. At the center stands a sturdy oak, weathered yet strong, a silent witness to countless gatherings. Its branches stretch wide, offering shade in summer and a reminder of endurance in winter. Around its roots, villagers pause to chat. Some lean against its trunk, idly tracing initials carved there long ago, while others simply sit in the grass, finding rest before the day's work resumes. The green is more than a meadow, it is the village's shared hearth. Here, notices are read aloud by the bailiff, declaring new laws or reminding households of their duties. Here too, fairs and feasts are held, with ribbons, music, and the sound of fiddles carrying into the evening. Even on the simplest mornings, when no announcement is made, there is always the comfort of presence, the reassurance that life, though modest, is carried together. A blacksmith strolls across the green, his apron stained with soot, stopping to share a laugh with the baker whose hands are still dusted in flour. Their words are unhurried, like the pace of the day itself. Across the way, a shepherd leans on his crook, watching his flock graze lazily at the edges. He knows every animal by sight, every bleat by tone, and the sheep seem to know him just as well. Children gather at the shallow stream, running near the green. They float wooden toys carved by fathers or older brothers, watching as the current nudges them downstream. Sometimes they fall into disputes over whose toy moves fastest, but the disagreements pass quickly, swept away like the little boats they treasure. Their mothers call from a distance, voices carrying with a mix of fondness and patience. By late morning, the market stirs. Stalls appear like patchwork pieces of color. Brightly woven cloth hangs in the breeze, baskets brim with apples, onions and herbs. The air grows fragrant with rosemary, thyme and wild garlic. Chickens cluck at the edges, tethered goats tug impatiently at ropes, and the hum of bargaining fills the air. Yet, unlike the great bustling markets of the towns, this one is quiet, intimate, and woven with familiarity. Everyone knows one another. Every coin passed, every loaf traded carries the weight of trust. If you linger here long enough, you notice how time feels slower. The green is not a place of urgency, but of pause. Villagers stop to exchange gossip about the weather, share news of distant relatives, or marvel at stories brought by the occasional traveler. Sometimes a fiddler sets up at the corner, playing a simple tune that causes even the most serious farmer to tap his foot unconsciously. As the sun climbs higher, shadows shorten and voices soften. A woman kneels at the stream, washing linens, the cloth slapping gently against the stone. Beside her, a young boy sits quietly, tracing shapes in the mud with a stick. Across the green, an elder settles onto a bench, watching it all with eyes that have seen decades of mornings just like this one. For him, each day feels both familiar and precious, a continuation of what has always been. The green, in its quiet simplicity, teaches its own kind of wisdom, that life, though marked by toil, is also stitched with moments of rest. That neighbors are not simply people who live nearby, but companions in the journey of survival and joy. And that even the smallest village, nestled far from the grandeur of cities, carries a pulse as steady as any cathedral bell. By midday, the green begins to thin. Farmers return to fields, women to kitchens, children reluctantly to their chores. The oak stands alone again, its branches swaying gently in the breeze, waiting for the next gathering, the next laughter, the next story. The heart of the village beats on, softly but without fail. The Tudor marketplace was more than a place of trade, it was the pulse of the community. Once or twice a week, depending on the size of the village, the streets would come alive with stalls and carts. Farmers brought in their produce, baskets of onions, leeks, turnips, and cabbages, still carrying the earthy scent of the soil. Others displayed apples, pears, and berries carefully gathered from nearby orchards. The smell of baked bread drifted across the square from the baker's stall, where round loaves, golden and crusty, were stacked neatly on wooden boards. Housewives often came early, eager to claim the best bread before it sold out. A few stalls down, butchers arranged joints of beef and pork, the meat salted or smoked to preserve it. Beside them, cheesemakers set out wheels of hard cheese, wrapped in cloth, ready to be cut into wedges. For the villagers, market day was not only about food. Cloth merchants laid out bolts of wool and linen in simple hues, of brown, grey, and undyed cream. Wealthier customers, or those saving for a special occasion, sometimes purchased brightly dyed cloth in shades of deep green, red, or blue, though these came at a higher cost. A tailor might stand nearby, measuring lengths of fabric with a wooden stick, offering to turn it into a tunic or gown. Children ran between the stalls, wide-eyed, pointing at honey cakes or sweetmeats sold by traveling vendors. These small treats, though rare and costly, were an irresistible sight. The air buzzed with laughter and negotiation as villagers bartered, trading a basket of eggs for a cut of meat, or exchanging a measure of grain for a wedge of cheese. Money was used, of course, but barter still held its place in everyday life, especially among those who had little coin to spare. News traveled quickly in the marketplace. A farmer might share that a neighbor's cow had calved, or that wolves had been sighted in the forest. A traveler might arrive from a nearby town, carrying gossip of distant events, the price of grain in the city, the passing of a nobleman, or the birth of a royal heir. For many, these scraps of information were their only connection to the wider world beyond their village lanes. Among the bustle, there were also entertainers, musicians strumming lutes, or jugglers performing tricks to gather a small crowd. Their hats lay on the ground, collecting coins from those willing to spare a penny. The laughter they brought was just as valuable as the food and goods exchanged, for life in a Tudor village, though steady, could also be hard and plain. The church often kept a watchful eye on the market, ensuring fair measures and honest dealings. In some places, market days were timed to follow Sunday services, so that villagers flowed directly from worship into trade and talk. The marketplace, then, was a blend of necessity and community, a place where the physical needs of food and clothing met the social need for companionship and connection. By afternoon, the stalls began to empty. Housewives carried baskets laden with their purchases, children clutched a treat, if they were lucky, and men pushed small carts homeward. The square grew quieter, the bustle fading as the villagers returned to their cottages and chores. What remained was the echo of voices, the faint smell of bread, and the promise that soon the marketplace would fill again with life. The kitchen of a Tudor cottage was the heart of daily life, even more so than the main hall. It was here that warmth, nourishment, and comfort were drawn together. In most village homes, the kitchen was not a separate, grand chamber like those found in manor houses or castles. Instead, it was often a single hearth set against a wall of the main living space, its smoke curling upward into the rafters before escaping through gaps in the thatch or a crude wooden chimney. The hearth was more than just a place for cooking. It was the center of light during the darker seasons, the provider of warmth in cold weather, and the keeper of the household's rhythm. Families gathered around it at dawn and again in the evening, its steady fire shaping the flow of their days. The hearth's flames illuminated faces, flickered across worn wooden beams, and cast shifting shadows upon the earthen floor. Cooking in a Tudor village was a laborious task. Without stoves, ovens, or modern conveniences, meals were prepared over open flames or in heavy iron pots suspended from hooks and chains. A large cauldron might simmer with pottage, a thick and hearty stew made from barley, beans, onions, and whatever vegetables were in season. Sometimes scraps of bacon or a piece of salted fish might be added for flavor, but meat was scarce in most homes. Instead, herbs from the garden and preserved spices, such as mustard seeds, pepper, or nutmeg for the lucky few, brought variety to the meals. Bread, too, was a staple, though not always baked at home. Many villagers took their dough to the communal bakehouse, where a large stone oven served the needs of the community. The bread of the poor was coarse and dark, made from rye or barley, while wealthier households enjoyed loaves of fine white wheat. Even so, the act of breaking bread was a daily ritual shared by all. Families would gather, dipping crusts into steaming bowls of broth, or sharing a simple cheese spread across slices still warm from the oven. The kitchen smelled of smoke and herbs. Dried bundles of rosemary, thyme and sage hung from the rafters, not only for flavor, but also for medicine and protection. Garlic bulbs dangled on strings, onions lay in baskets near the hearth, and wooden shelves held earthenware jars filled with grains, honey, or salted fish. The mingling scents of wood smoke, simmering stew, and freshly baked bread created an aroma that defined the Tudor home. Children often played near the hearth, though their mothers kept a watchful eye. Sparks could leap suddenly, and the iron pots were heavy and hot. Small hands might be put to work, grinding oats in a wooden mortar or plucking herbs from the garden patch. Even the smallest members of the family contributed to the labor of food preparation. In winter, the kitchen became a refuge. On long, dark nights, when frost rimed the windows and the wind rattled the shutters, the fire was kept alive as a silent guardian against the cold. Families huddled close, their bodies warmed as much by companionship as by the hearth's flames. Shadows danced across the walls, and the crackle of burning logs provided a comforting rhythm, like a heartbeat for the home. The tools of cooking were simple but well used. Iron spits turned by hand roasted chickens or small joints of meat when they could be afforded. Wooden ladles stirred pottage, while clay pitchers carried ale from the village brew. Knives were few but precious, often passed down through generations, their handles smoothed by years of use. The wooden table, rough-hewn and scarred by countless meals, bore witness to the daily rhythm of life. Meals were eaten without the forks we use today. Instead, spoons, knives, and hands served the purpose. Wooden trenchers, sometimes carved from bread itself, acted as plates. Ale was drunk from cups of wood, horn, or pottery. Meals were communal, shared and passed around, with little ceremony but much necessity. Hunger was a familiar visitor in many Tudor households, and the act of eating together was both survival and solace. To the food, before meals, families would bow their heads in prayer, thanking God for whatever had been provided. Even the simplest pottage carried a sense of blessing. Hunger and hardship were never far from a Tudor villager's life. so gratitude was woven into the daily ritual of eating. By the glow of the kitchen hearth, stories were told. Grandparents shared memories of harsher winters, tales of kings and battles, or simple parables meant to guide young hearts. The kitchen was not just a place of labor, but of learning and memory. It was here that children absorbed not only the flavors of their culture, but also its values, its faith, and its stories. When the fire at last burned low, embers glowing red against the ashes, families would scatter to their resting places. Yet the hearth was never allowed to die completely. A few coals were banked under ashes, kept alive through the night so that the morning could be greeted with fire once more. The Tudor kitchen, humble though it was, stood as the beating heart of the village household. It was the place where warmth, nourishment, family, and tradition intertwined. Its smoke rose into the air, joining countless others across the countryside, silent witnesses to the quiet endurance of village life. The village is quiet in the early hours, though the first threads of pale sunlight have already touched the ridge of the fields beyond the cottages. As the morning mist lifts, a new rhythm begins, one that has repeated across countless days and years. The fields, the heart of Tudor village life, call the people from their beds, guiding their hands into labor that sustains the entire community. Most of the land is not privately owned, but worked collectively under the rules of the manorial system. The lord of the manor owns the land, yet peasants, tenants, and laborers tend it in return for the right to live on their plots, to graze animals, and to keep a share of the harvest. It is an arrangement as old as memory, both binding and familiar. At the edge of the village, strips of farmland stretch across the open fields, long and narrow, like threads stitched into a wide tapestry. These strips are scattered, not gathered in neat parcels, so a villager's land is never in one place. A family may have one strip here, another across the ridge, and yet another near the meadow. This scattering ensures fairness, so that each family shares both the fertile soil of the lowlands and the stonier earth of the uplands. The men rise with the dawn, shoulders heavy with tools, wooden-handled hoes, spades, and iron-tipped ploughs drawn by oxen. Women join them, carrying baskets and tending to smaller tasks, weeding, scattering seed, or gleaning fallen grains. Even children play their part, chasing crows from the crops with shouts and clattering sticks, their laughter echoing faintly in the fields. The work is shared, for survival leaves no room for idleness. In spring, the soil must be broken and prepared. The heavy plough cuts into the earth, turning the soil in dark furrows, releasing the scent of damp clay and humus. A team of oxen plods patiently forward, their breath steaming in the cool air, guided by a farmer who steadies. The blade, the clatter of iron, the creak of leather harness, the occasional grunt of exertion, all form a quiet chorus of effort. In summer, barley and wheat push high, their stalks bending in the wind. Villagers spend long days weeding and repairing fences, their hands stained green and brown. In the evenings, they return weary but satisfied, knowing the crops inch closer to harvest, and then comes autumn, the busiest time of all. The harvest is a season of urgency, a race against weather and time. The air fills with the rustle of scythes slicing through grain, the swish of stalks falling in golden waves, and the chatter of workers as they bind sheaves with twisted straw. The whole village joins in, for every hand is needed. Harvest is more than work. It is the moment the year turns, when the efforts of months are gathered into tangible reward. The grain is carried back in carts to the barns, where it will be stored and threshed, separating the kernels from the chaff. Some is kept for the villagers' bread, while a portion is owed to the lord of the manor, rent for the land they till. Payment may be taken in grain, livestock, or labor, but the obligation is unavoidable. Even in abundance, a part must be surrendered. Between these labors, there are moments of rest. Farmers lean on their tools, wiping sweat from their brows, watching swallows dip across the fields. Women pause to drink cool water from leather flasks, their voices low as they share news or gossip. Children skip between rows of stubble, their laughter mingling with the soft hum of insects in the hedgerows. The seasons shape the village, not by clock or calendar, but by the steady turning of nature. Spring promises, summer grows, autumn gathers, and winter endures. Each villager knows the pattern, learned not from books, but from life lived close to the soil. To plant too soon is folly, to harvest too late is ruin. The wisdom of the fields is passed down in gestures, habits, and sayings, as much a part of the land as the hedges and furrows themselves. When the day's labor is done, villagers return slowly, tools over their shoulders, hands rough with calluses. The air cools, the sky turns rose and violet, and the cottages glow with firelight. There is satisfaction in the rhythm, in the steady flow of work and rest, need and provision. Though hard, the work binds the people together in quiet fellowship, each laboring for the good of all. In this way, the fields are more than food. They are memory, duty, and bond. They tie the villager to the land, to the Lord, and to one another. Each furrow turned, each stalk gathered, carries not only grain, but a sense of belonging, a reminder that life in the Tudor village, however modest, is rooted deeply in the earth itself. The morning air is crisp, touched with a faint coolness as villagers stir awake with anticipation. For today is market day, the liveliest occasion in the week, when neighbors gather, traders arrive from the countryside, and the narrow village street fills with chatter, scents, and color. The usual quiet rhythm of life gives way to the bustle of exchange as baskets are filled, coins change hands, and stories are swapped along with goods. The sun rises slowly, casting long golden beams across the thatched rooftops. Smoke curls upward as hearths are stoked for the day's meals. One by one, villagers step out of their cottages carrying woven baskets, clay jugs, or sacks of grain. The children hurry beside them, their eyes wide at the promise of sweet treats or brightly dyed ribbons. The central green has been transformed into the market square. Wooden stalls, simple but sturdy, are arranged in rows, their planks worn smooth by years of use. Cloth awnings flutter gently in the breeze. Some traders spread their wares directly upon blankets, the patchwork of goods brightening the earth beneath. The hum of conversation begins to build, carrying over the crow of roosters and the bray of donkeys. At one stall, a farmer displays baskets of apples, their skins polished to a deep red. Pears, slightly misshapen yet fragrant, rest beside them. The sharp scent of onions mingles with the earthy aroma of freshly pulled carrots and leeks. Another trader arranges wheels of cheese, pale yellow and round, their rinds firm, promising a sharp tang on the tongue. Beside him, an elderly woman ladles out butter from a crock, her hands moving with practiced ease. But the market is not only for food. A cloth merchant has travelled from a nearby town, his stall draped in bolts of wool, dyed in muted shades of blue, green, and russet. Women pause to feel the texture of the fabric between their fingers, imagining new gowns or kirtles. The merchant unfurls a length of deep crimson, its richness catching the sunlight, and for a moment, it seems a treasure too fine for such a humble square. The blacksmith, his hands blackened, though he has paused from the forge, offers iron nails, hinges, and tools. He sets down a newly forged knife, its blade gleaming faintly. Farmers nod approvingly, for such wares are vital to their daily labor. Children linger nearby, drawn by the sparkle of small horseshoes and the sharp ring as he strikes metal on metal to show its strength. Elsewhere, a potter arranges jugs and bowls, their surfaces glazed in earthy hues. Each piece bears slight irregularities, yet that is their charm, shaped by hand upon a wheel that has turned countless times before. A housewife turns one in her hand, tapping it gently to test its soundness, then barters with a careful eye. The scents of market day are varied and rich. Spices, brought in small quantities from afar, mingle faintly with the more familiar aromas of herbs. A seller offers sprigs of rosemary and thyme, bundles of lavender tied neatly with twine. The fragrance lingers in the air, sweet and sharp at once. From another corner drifts the smell of baked bread, warm loaves wrapped in coarse cloth, their crusts still crisp from the oven. Children clutch pennies eagerly, hoping to taste a sugared bun or a honey cake. The air is alive with sound. Voices overlap, men and women haggling, laughter spilling out between the calls of sellers, advertising their goods. A minstrel plucks at a lute, his soft tune weaving through the noise, while a boy beats a small drum beside him, keeping time. The clinking of coins adds its rhythm, the metallic chime marking the flow of trade. Beyond commerce, market day is a time for gathering. Old friends clasp hands, exchanging news of families, of births and betrothals, of harvests good or poor. Messages travel swiftly here, passed from mouth to mouth before carrying outward into the countryside. A traveler may share tidings from distant towns, speaking of fairs, of politics, or of rumors that stir curiosity. For villagers, these stories add spice to their quiet lives, as precious in their way as cloth or spice. Children dart between the stalls, laughing as they chase one another, sometimes scolded when their feet come too close to the wares. They stare at the juggler who has taken a place near the well, his hands tossing colored balls high into the air. Gasps rise when he catches them all with ease. Some children clap, others watch in open wonder, their eyes following every motion. As the morning deepens, the market grows busier still. The sun climbs higher, warming the cobbles beneath. The shuffling of feet, the creak of wagon wheels, and the bray of animals lend their chorus to the day. Villagers pause to drink ale drawn from a barrel, sharing cups with neighbors, their talk easy and unhurried. Yet beneath the liveliness, there is a rhythm of necessity. Each purchase has weight, a sack of grain to last the week, a bolt of cloth to be cut into clothing before winter, a new pot to replace one cracked beyond repair. For the Tudor villager, market day is both celebration and survival, joy and duty woven together. By afternoon, the bustle begins to fade. Baskets grow heavy, purses lighter. The minstrel's psalm slows, his lute resting now by his side. Merchants pack away their goods, tying bundles tightly with rope. Villagers drift homeward, their steps weary yet content. The market square empties gradually, leaving behind only the scattered traces of a day well spent. Straw trampled into the dirt, a few dropped apple cores, and the faint echo of voices still lingering in the warm air. In the cottages, the spoils of the day are unpacked. Bread is sliced and shared, fabric folded carefully, pots set upon shelves. The village resumes its quieter pace, yet the memory of market day lingers, carrying warmth and connection into the days that follow. As the afternoon ripened into evening, the heart of the Tudor village slowly drew its people toward a familiar place, the village green. This open patch of grass, framed by cottages, the smithy, and the timbered hall, was not only a space for livestock or seasonal fairs, it was the stage on which community life unfolded. Children, released from their chores, came tumbling across the grass, chasing one another with shrill laughter. The older boys played at mock sword fights with sticks, imagining themselves knights in shining armor, though their boots were muddy and their tunics patched. The younger girls wove garlands from wildflowers plucked from the hedgerows, their fingers nimble and patient as they crowned one another with blossoms. On the far side of the green, elders sat on low stools or benches, watching the younger generations with indulgent eyes. They swapped tales from the past, of harvests long ago, of storms that had swept through the valley, and of neighbors who had once lived among them. Their voices blended into a steady hum, like bees in summer, rising and falling in gentle rhythm. Nearby, a fiddler tuned his instrument. Though not a professional musician, he was skilled enough to bring life to the gatherings. The thin, reedy notes, carried on the evening air, soon joined by the tapping of feet, the soft clap of hands, and the occasional burst of song. It was music not meant for grandeur, but for togetherness. In the center of the green, some villagers began to dance. The steps were simple, turns, claps, and spins, but they brought smiles to weary faces. Husbands and wives, farmers and craftsmen, all moved with unhurried joy, the day's labors forgotten for a while. The children tried to mimic the dances, stumbling into laughter as they misstepped. As twilight crept in, women passed around baskets of food. Coarse loaves were broken and shared, wedges of cheese handed from hand to hand, apples, sliced and offered freely. The scent of roasted meat drifted from one cottage where a family had prepared extra to contribute. No one was left hungry, for the act of sharing was as important as the food itself. A small fire was kindled at the edge of the green, its smoke curling into the cooling air. People gathered closer, drawn by the warmth and the flicker of flames. The fiddler played softer now, his notes slower, almost like a lullaby. Mothers rocked babies in their arms, while older children leaned against their father's knees, heavy-lidded with sleep. Stories began to rise in the glow of the fire. Some were humorous tales of daily life, made grander in the retelling. Others were darker, half-believed legends of spirits wandering the woods, or of ancient battles fought long before their time. The listeners leaned in, shivering not only from the cool air, but from the thrill of imagination. Overhead, the sky deepened into indigo. Stars began to appear, pricking the heavens with quiet light. The villagers, gazing upward, fell into a comfortable silence. For a moment, all seemed still. The earth beneath them, the simple lives they led, and the endless sky above. One by one, families began to drift away, carrying lanterns to light the paths to their cottages. The laughter softened, the music faded, and the fire sank into glowing embers, yet the sense of togetherness lingered like a gentle thread connecting each home in the village. The green, though empty again, held the memory of voices, dances, and shared bread. Tomorrow would bring its own work, its own burdens, but for now, the evening had offered rest. And so the Tudor village settled into night, with hearts lighter for having gathered, and with the comfort of knowing that community was as much a part of life as the fields, the hearth, or the seasons. As the sun dips lower on the horizon, the Tudor village eases into the calm of evening. Shadows stretch long across the timbered houses, and the fields glow softly with the fading light. A hush begins to settle, not silence, but a gentler rhythm after the day's labors. It is a moment that feels timeless, as though the land itself exhales after a day of toil. In the hearths of cottages, smoke curls upward in steady trails, carrying the scents of dinner into the cool air. Simple meals are prepared. Hearty stews thickened with barley, pottage flavored with whatever herbs were gathered earlier, or perhaps a small portion of salted fish for those who had access to it. Bread, baked earlier in the day, is sliced and shared. The evening meal is not grand but filling, a time of gathering and warmth before the darkness of night takes over. Inside, the rooms glow with the orange flicker of tallow candles or the steady flame of rushlights. Shadows dance across the rough, plastered walls, making the modest interiors feel alive. Families gather close around their tables or hearths, bowls in hand, stories flowing as freely as the meal itself. Children sit quietly, often listening wide-eyed, as parents recall village tales, family histories, or even small jokes that bring laughter to the otherwise quiet evening. After supper, the chores are not yet finished. Someone must tend to the animals, making sure the chickens are shut safely in their coop and the pigs are penned. Cows are checked, their hay distributed evenly so they will rest well through the night. The work is small, but it brings reassurance. Each task is a reminder that the survival of the household depends upon steady care, even in the dimming light. As the village winds down, the lanes grow quieter. Only the occasional sound of voices carries through the cool air, or the faint bark of a dog keeping watch. The air grows colder with the setting sun, and a faint mist begins to drift across the fields. For those walking the lanes, lanterns are lit, their soft glow offering guidance along the familiar paths. The church bell rings once more, a final mark of the day's end. It is a low, resonant sound that drifts over the village, reminding everyone of the rhythm of time and the presence of the sacred in their daily lives. After the bell fades, the world feels hushed, as though the day has finally given way to rest. In many cottages, spinning wheels are brought out for one last turn. Women and older girls twist wool into thread, their hands moving steadily as the conversation continues. For others, mending is the chosen task, a needle flashing in the candlelight as torn garments are repaired. These quiet labors are not simply chores. They are the gentle backbone of life, holding families and households together with patience and persistence. Music, too, has its place in the evening. Perhaps a villager takes out a small flute, or lute playing softly as the firelight flickers. Simple melodies rising to the air, familiar and comforting. Sometimes, songs are shared, ballads about old kings and battles, or lighter tunes about love, farming, and village life. These psalms connect the people not only to one another, but also to the generations who sang them before. Children grow drowsy as the evening stretches on. They curl up close to the fire, their eyes heavy as the warmth and the steady hum of voices lull them towards sleep. For the parents, the quiet moments of rest are treasured. The day has been long, filled with work and responsibility, but the evening offers a pause, a chance to simply be together. The night outside deepens. The stars appear above the village, faint at first, then growing brighter as the sky darkens. Without the glow of modern lights, the heavens reveal themselves in full brilliance. Constellations are familiar to the villagers. They are guides, markers of time, and sometimes even woven into stories told by the hearth. Looking upward, there is a sense of vastness, a reminder that their small village exists within a larger, mysterious world. Eventually, the village quiets completely. Doors are bolted, shutters are drawn, and fires are banked low to keep embers glowing until morning. The animals settle in their stalls, and even the dogs cease their barking. The night belongs to silence, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustle of wind. Through the trees, sleep comes slowly, gently, wrapping the village in stillness. Tomorrow will bring another day of work, of rhythm and routine, but for now, there is peace in the simplicity of rest. The Tudor village, with its modest homes and hard-working people, drifts into the embrace of night, held by the same timeless cycle that has shaped lives for centuries. As the sun dips lower in the sky, the Tudor village enters one of its most gentle and reflective hours. Evening is a time when the day's labor finally eases, and the people of the village shift from work to rest, their lives bathed in the fading golden light of the setting sun. The air cools, carrying the faint scent of hearth smoke as households prepare their suppers. Small cottages glow with flickering candlelight or the orange hue of the fire, their latticed windows spilling warm light onto the beaten earth outside. Shadows stretch long across the village green, and the sounds of the day begin to soften into murmurs and laughter. Children, freed from errands and chores, gather in little groups to play one last game before being called inside. Their laughter rises brightly into the twilight. Wooden balls roll, hoops spin, and stick games echo with energy. Parents watch from cottage doorways, reminding them not to stray too far as darkness approaches. Inside the cottages, families settle around the hearth for their evening meal. Dinner is often simpler than midday fare, perhaps a thick broth of peas or beans, flavored with bits of onion and herbs, accompanied by coarse bread. On fortunate days, there might be small cuts of meat, a chicken shared among several family members, or a dish flavored with salted pork. Wooden bowls and trenchers are passed, and conversation flows in easy rhythm as everyone shares news from the day. The flicker of the fire draws all eyes. It is both warmth and light, a steady comfort after the weariness of work. Children sit on the floor, their faces dappled by the glow, while parents talk in low voices about planting schedules, market news, or the happenings of nearby villages. It is a simple, communal scene, but one that gives shape to their days. Outside, neighbors visit one another in the cooling air. Men lean against cottage walls, their voices rising in laughter as they trade, stories often accompanied by a mug of ale. The village alehouse becomes lively at this hour. Its wooden sign creaks in the evening breeze, and its smoky interior fills with villagers sharing drink, song, and companionship. Here, news is exchanged, from rumors of distant towns to tales of the monarch's court, though such matters feel far away from their daily concerns. Song is a constant companion of evening. A fiddler may strike up a tune in the alehouse, or voices rise together in familiar choruses. In the cottages, mothers sing, lullabies to drowsy children, soft melodies carried on the night air through half-open shutters. The rhythm of life is not hurried. It moves in slow, steady beats, shaped by the passing of sun and moon. As darkness deepens, lanterns flicker to life, though most households rely on the firelight alone. The village grows quieter with each passing moment. Dogs curl up near doorways, hens settle on their roosts, and oxen shift heavily in their stalls. The natural world prepares for rest just as the people do. Before bed, many villagers turn to small rituals of faith. A whispered prayer by the bedside, a sign of the cross, or the telling of a remembered psalm offers reassurance before the night. Religion is deeply woven into their lives, a quiet anchor that gives structure even in private moments. When the last embers are banked and the fire dims, the cottagers fall into stillness. The sounds of the village fade until only the occasional call of an owl or the rustle of the wind through the trees remains. Beneath the thatched roofs, families drift into slumber, their bodies weary from labor, their dreams colored by the rhythm of village life. The Tudor evening is not dramatic. It does not unfold with great spectacle. Instead, it closes the day gently with food, firelight, laughter, and quiet rest. In its simplicity lies its beauty, the comfort of routine, the warmth of family, and the peace of knowing that tomorrow will bring familiar labors once more. As the day in the Tudor village drifts toward its quiet conclusion, a new rhythm settles over the lanes and cottages. The lively sounds of trade, work, and conversation give way to something softer, something more subdued. The smoke from hearth fires thickens as every household begins its evening rituals, and the gentle dimming of daylight folds the village into a calm embrace. Inside homes, the evening meal becomes the centerpiece of the day. Bread, perhaps still warm from the morning's baking, is broken and passed around. Bowls of pottage, enriched with what vegetables and herbs could be spared, are placed on wooden tables. Those who had a small catch of fish, or the luck of a little extra meat, add them to the pot. Families gather close together, their faces lit by the warm flicker of the fire and the glow of candles made from tallow or beeswax, depending on their means. It is not a feast in the grand sense, but it is nourishing and familiar. Children's chatter softens as tiredness begins to seep in. They recount small adventures of the day, chasing geese from the garden or helping to carry kindling for the fire. Parents listen with fondness, though their own bodies ache from the labor of the fields or workshops. The meal is not hurried, it is an anchor, a moment when time seems to slow and the family can sit in shared comfort. Outside, the lanes grow quieter. The blacksmith has long since quenched his forge, and the rhythmic clang of his hammer no longer echoes. The mill, which had turned steadily all day, now stands still as the stream murmurs past it. Even the animals retreat to their resting places. Cows chew cud in the dim barns, chickens roost on their wooden perches, and sheep huddle together in pens for warmth. The village itself seems to breathe out, releasing the energy of the day into a peaceful stillness. As twilight deepens, the sky above the Tudor village becomes a stage for beauty. Fading light casts the timber-framed cottages in gentle silhouette, their crooked beams and thatched roofs touched by the last brush of gold. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, drifting into the cooling air. On the horizon, shades of pink and violet melt into the deepening blue of night. Villagers, stepping briefly outside, pause to take in the sight. The days behind them, the night a promise of rest. In some homes, the soft music of a lute, recorder, or fiddle might be heard. Not every cottage owns an instrument, but those that do occasionally lift the spirits of neighbors who gather to listen. Simple songs, familiar to all, drift into the evening air, carrying with them a sense of shared tradition and memory. It is in these quiet performances that stories, histories, and emotions are passed from one generation to the next, not through books or parchment, but through sound and song. For those of faith, evening prayers provide a final rhythm to the day. Families kneel or bow their heads, murmuring words of gratitude for food, warmth, and safety. They ask for protection through the night and blessings for the next day's labors. Whether spoken quietly at the hearth or shared at the village church when services are called, prayer marks the close of a Tudor day. As the last light slips away, darkness takes hold, though not all at once. Candles flicker in small windows, glowing like stars scattered through the village. The streets are left to shadows, except for the occasional lantern carried by someone finishing an errand or heading home. Without the hum of modern noise, the Tudor night is filled with subtler sounds. The croak of frogs, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the distant bark of a dog. Silence here is not emptiness, but presence. Children are put to bed early, wrapped in woolen blankets and straw mattresses, often sharing with siblings for warmth. A quiet backdrop to the conversations of parents lingering by the fire. For many adults, bedtime comes soon after, though some remain awake to mend clothing, repair tools, or simply sit in thought. The glow of the hearth becomes the center of all things, its flames the only light, its warmth the comfort that holds the household together. Night in the Tudor village is both humbling and reassuring. Without the distractions of a world lit by lamps and filled with constant activity, the darkness brings rest and reflection. It invites stillness, a return to simplicity. People rise and fall with the sun, their lives woven into the fabric of the natural world, in a way that feels both grounding and eternal. As sleep takes hold, the village lies wrapped in a deep, encompassing quiet. The cottages, barns, and workshops rest beneath the starlit sky, their beams and thatches outlined against the silver glow of the moon. Within each home, dreams unfold, dreams of bountiful harvests, of secure winters, of health and peace. The Tudor village rests not only in body, but in spirit, held together by rhythm, community, and hope. And so, the day concludes as gently as it began. The Tudor world, with all its labors and laughter, its struggles and comforts, sinks into slumber. It is in this rhythm of work, meal, prayer, and rest that life finds its quiet harmony. A day ends, and with it a promise of another dawn, another beginning, in the simple and enduring life of a Tudor village.